Welcome to podcast Sarah and Michael.
We spend a huge portion of our lives, just looking at clocks. The clock on your phone, the microwave, maybe counting down to the weekend. But in geopolitics, the most dangerous clocks in the world are the ones we can't actually see. The invisible timers ticking down in the background of global conflicts. I'm Michael.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we are taking a deep dive into a situation where multiple invisible timers they're ticking down all at once. And they are definitely not synchronized.
No, they're really not. It's a pretty precarious moment, to be honest.
Right.
Because when those timers run out at the same time, the fallout doesn't just stay contained to one region. It ripples out.
Right.
It affects everything from international shipping lanes to the actual price of the goods delivered right to your front door.
Exactly. So our mission today is to sort of cut through the massive information overload out there. We really want to summarize the key points of the ongoing U.S.-Iran conflict and specifically analyze the main causes of this massive new wave of clashes we're seeing right now in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There really is. And we're pulling from a pretty big stack of sources today, which includes news reports and intelligence assessments dated May 9, 2026. We want to bring you along with us so you can understand exactly what is happening in the Middle East right now.
Right, and to start making sense of this, I think we really need to look at the immediate reality on the water. That fragile one-month ceasefire that began back on April 7th, it has essentially evaporated at this point.
Yeah, it's totally gone. And the diplomatic timeline alongside it is just completely stalled out.
Right.
Based on our sources, the U.S. expected an official answer from Iran regarding a peace proposal.
Right.
And this was meant to be a proposal to formally end the war before moving on to those touchy long-term subjects like their nuclear program. The U.S. explicitly wanted an answer by Friday.
And Iran's foreign ministry said they were, quote, still considering it.
Considering it, right. Well, Saturday has arrived and there is absolutely no answer.
None. And while there's total silence at the negotiating table, the volume is turned, all the way up out on the water.
Oh, absolutely.
Over the last few days, we've seen some of the most intense clashes in and around the Strait of Hormuz since the ceasefire was declared.
Okay, let's unpack this, because looking at this dynamic, it's like two companies negotiating a merger in the boardroom while simultaneously trying to hack each other's servers in the basement.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. The diplomacy is public, but the actual leverage is being fought over in the dark. Because on Friday, USCENTCOM, the Central Military Command overseeing American operations there, they sent fighter jets to attack two Iranian tankers.
Yeah, because those tankers were actively attempting to break the naval blockade that the U.S. has established over Iranian ports.
Exactly. And the jets specifically targeted and hit the smokestacks of the ships, disabling them.
And notice the deliberate tactical choice there, right?
Hitting the smokestack instead of the hull.
Right. Hitting the smokestack disables the vessel's propulsion. You destroy the exhaust system, the engine chokes, and the ship is paralyzed. It stops the vessel in its tracks without breaching the cargo holds.
Which avoids causing a massive catastrophic oil spill in the Gulf.
Exactly. It's highly calculated.
But then, almost simultaneously, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, they conducted what they designated a special operation in the Gulf of Oman.
Right. They seized a Barbados-registered tanker.
Yeah, named the Ocean Koi. Iran claims this specific ship was undermining Iranian interests and their oil exports. And actually, just to be completely clear to you listening, we are impartially reporting the claims from both the U.S. military and the Iranian government here.
Yes, absolutely.
We aren't taking sides, we're just looking at what both are officially stating in the source material.
Which is vital, keeping those competing narratives clear. Because Iran's armed forces reported that the U.S. attacks resulted in 1 crew member dead, 10 injured, and 4 to 5 missing. And they are outright accusing the U.S. of violating the April 7th ceasefire with these strikes.
And the violence didn't even remain confined to the shipping lanes either. It's spilled over national borders.
Yeah, it really did.
The United Arab Emirates reported intercepting 2 ballistic missiles and 3 drones fired directly from Iran, resulting in 3 moderate injuries. And our sources point out this was Iran's direct retaliation for President Trump's Project Freedom.
Right, Project Freedom,
Yep.
which was an initiative announced by the president designed to provide a protective military umbrella for commercial ships navigating the strait.
He suspended it.
He did, after just 38 hours. And when that protective umbrella was suddenly folded up, the UAE found itself totally exposed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Iran saw an opening to send a kinetic message, basically saying the region is still highly vulnerable without U.S. protection.
But, looking at this timing, it doesn't make strategic sense to provoke the U.S. militarily during active peace talks unless Iran is acting out of a different kind of desperation.
Well, yeah.
Like, my reading of the sources suggests this isn't just about military posturing, this is about infrastructure.
Yes.
So why are these specific maritime attacks happening right now during a ceasefire? The physical clashes on the water seem to be a direct reaction to the physical blockade.
That is the crucial connection. The U.S. has been physically blockading Iranian ports since April. And a blockade doesn't just stop ships from leaving, right? It creates a massive structural crisis inside the country being blockaded.
Because Iran's entire economy is fundamentally built on extracting and exporting oil.
Exactly. And you can't just easily turn off an oil well. It is a highly complex process of managing immense underground geological pressure.
Wait, really? You can't just, cap it?
No, if you just cap a well abruptly, you risk permanently damaging the geological reservoir, meaning that well might never produce oil again.
Oh, man. So when the exports stop because the ports are blocked, the extraction doesn't magically pause. The oil just starts building up domestically.
Right.
According to energy analytics firm Kepler and reports from Middle East Eye, Iran is rapidly running out of places to put it. They only have about 25 to 30 days, literally just a few weeks of oil storage capacity left.
It's terrifyingly close.
It's like filling a heavy-duty water balloon from a fire hose that you can't turn off. Eventually, the pressure has to go somewhere.
That's exactly it.
But let me push back for a second here. Is Iran sending these tankers out just to make a political point, or is it out of sheer infrastructure survival?
It is absolutely infrastructure survival. You have to remember, Iran's energy infrastructure is notoriously aging. It's been under various international sanctions for decades, which makes maintenance incredibly difficult.
So the pipes are old.
Very old. If their storage tanks fill completely to the brim, the backup in pressure could lead to pipes bursting, valves failing, just a systemic collapse of their entire energy grid.
Which explains the absolute desperation we are seeing in the Gulf.
Right. It explains why they're willing to risk their tankers by running a heavily armed U.S. blockade.
And it also explains the seizure of the ocean koi. Grabbing a foreign tanker gives them a tangible bargaining chip. It provides leverage to try and force the U.S. to ease the blockade before their domestic pipelines literally start rupturing.
Exactly. So we are tracking the oil storage clock, which sits at roughly 30 days. But the sources highlight another timer ticking down in the background. And this one is causing massive friction in Washington right now.
The intelligence clock.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how the narrative really splits. A leaked CIA assessment, this was first reported by the Washington Post, stated that Iran can actually withstand this naval blockade for another 3 to 4 months before facing severe economic pressure.
3 to 4 months. So yes, the oil storage is an acute, immediate crisis, but their overall economy won't totally buckle for a full fiscal quarter.
Right. But the disparity between that intelligence leak and the public political messaging is just stark.
It's huge.
Yeah. The CIA leak also reported that Iran retains 75% of its mobile missile launchers and 70% of its missile stockpile compared to pre-war levels. The report even noted they have the capability to simply reopen their underground missile depots.
Wait, 70%? Because just this past Wednesday, President Trump sat in the Oval Office and explicitly claimed that Iran's missiles were almost entirely destroyed.
Yes, he did.
He estimated they only had 18 to 19% left. And following that Washington Post leak, a senior U.S. intelligence official publicly denied the CIA report. They claimed instead that the blockade is already causing heavy cumulative damage, slashing revenue, and plunging Iran into a systemic recession.
So when you have the administration and internal intelligence reports painting two completely different pictures of an adversary's strength, you really have to ask why that gap exists.
Well, how does a government even negotiate a peace treaty when public claims and internal intelligence reports paint two completely different pictures of the enemy's strength?
It's incredibly difficult. It usually comes down to different metrics of measurement, right? Politicians and intelligence analysts often speak totally different languages.
Like counting different things.
Exactly.
Huh.
The administration might be looking at currently deployed and immediately operational missiles to project strength to a domestic audience.
Ah, okay.
Meanwhile, the CIA is likely counting the total existing stock, which includes reserves that take time to prep.
That makes sense. But regardless of why the gap exists, it creates a massive problem for the diplomats actually trying to negotiate the peace treaty.
It creates a dangerous vulnerability at the negotiating table. Think about it. If the public is told the adversary is 80% destroyed, they expect a swift, decisive victory. Or, a complete surrender.
You definitely don't expect your side to have to make painful compromises.
Exactly. But if the reality for your diplomats is that the adversary still has 70% of their stockpile, and they can financially hold out for months, those diplomats know they have to negotiate from a position of mutual stamina, not total dominance. And if the adversary sees that you are divided on your assessment of their strength, they will absolutely exploit that.
Oh, of course they will. They'll drag out the clock. Like, letting Friday pass into Saturday without giving an answer on the peace talks, knowing internal American friction might buy them more favorable terms.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the military option carries such heavy risks of regional escalation that the U.S. is being forced to pivot heavily toward financial weapons.
Right.
But this is severely testing international alliances, and the U.S. is finding pretty limited support for its current posture.
Yeah. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was just in Rome meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and our sources say he was visibly frustrated.
Yeah, he was questioning why Italy and other European allies aren't backing the U.S. effort to force the Strait of Hormuz open.
Right. He warned that letting any single country control international waters sets a terrifying global precedent.
But, Europe's reluctance is rooted deeply in economic self-preservation. Europe is incredibly sensitive to energy shocks right now.
Oh, totally.
While European leaders might agree with the U.S. in principle about freedom of navigation, they are terrified of the consequences. Aggressively joining a military coalition in the Strait could trigger Iran to completely mine the waters.
Or attack European energy assets in the region.
Exactly. And that would plunge Europe right back into a crippling inflation crisis.
So, since Europe won't help militarily, the U.S. Treasury just announced new financial sanctions on 10 individuals and companies, many of them based in China and Hong Kong.
Right.
The official charge is that they are supplying parts for Iran's Shahed drones. But the Treasury isn't stopping there, are they?
No, they're threatening secondary sanctions against foreign financial institutions and independent Chinese teapot refineries.
Teapot refineries, what exactly are those?
To understand the impact here, we have to look at how these function. They are smaller, independent oil refineries in China. They operate completely outside the massive state-owned petroleum giants.
Okay.
Because they're smaller and often don't rely heavily on the U.S. financial system, they have been very willing to buy heavily discounted, sanctioned oil from Iran.
Ah, using workarounds.
Yes, trading in non-dollar currencies or using barter systems. Right now, they are essentially Iran's economic lifeline.
Wow. So the U.S. threatening secondary sanctions means they aren't just punishing Iran, they are threatening to punish anyone who touches Iranian oil, even outside the U.S. banking system.
Exactly. But the timing of this threat is staggering. This is happening just days before President Trump travels to China for a massive, highly anticipated summit with President Xi Jinping.
Just days before. Imposing or even threatening these secondary sanctions right before a presidential summit. That is an incredibly high-stakes diplomatic gamble.
It is. The U.S. is forcing the issue onto the agenda, basically signaling to China, we know your independent refineries are keeping Iran's economy afloat, and we are willing to inflict financial pain on Chinese companies to stop it.
It's a move designed to create leverage, but man, it could easily backfire and sour the entire summit before the two leaders even sit down.
The diplomatic fallout could be massive.
It really could. So what does this all mean? Let's bring this back to you, the listener. Why does a standoff over a smokestack on a tanker thousands of miles away or, a secondary sanction on a Chinese refinery matter to your daily life?
It all comes down to the price of energy.
Exactly. The Strait of Hormuz is the central artery of the global economy. It handles about 20% of the entire world's oil supply.
That's huge.
Every fifth drop of oil powering global industry passes through that narrow stretch of water.
And global markets despise uncertainty. The possibility of that artery being severed causes immediate panic in energy trading.
Yeah, according to the data in our sources, Brent crude, which is the major global benchmark used to price oil worldwide, is currently trading above $101 a barrel.
Wow.
Now, that is down about 6% from last week, likely because the market was prematurely pricing in the hopes of that Friday peace deal response that, never actually came. But $101 a barrel is still punishingly high.
It really is.
That price bakes its way into the foundation of everything. It dictates the cost of the gas in your car, the diesel powering the trucks, bringing groceries to your local store, the jet fuel for your flights, and even the manufacturing costs of the plastics in your home.
It acts as an unavoidable inflationary tax on the entire global economy.
So, to summarize the key points here, we are looking at a conflict frozen in a remarkably dangerous stalemate. On one side, there are diplomatic waiting games, with Iran missing deadlines and stalling for leverage.
And on the other side, relentless invisible clocks are ticking down. You have Iran's oil storage facilities literally days away from overflowing, threatening to rupture their aging infrastructure. Simultaneously, the U.S. administration is fighting a clock of international patience, struggling to get allies like Europe on board, and managing tensions with China before the global economic pain becomes just too great.
Right. The U.S. possesses overwhelming military dominance, but faces limited international backing and internal disagreements over intelligence metrics. Meanwhile, Iran is heavily damaged by the blockade, yet retains enough firepower and sheer economic desperation to keep the global oil supply effectively held hostage.
It really leaves you wondering about the future. I mean, as the world pushes aggressively toward green energy and electric vehicles, partly to escape this exact kind of oil dependency, will we actually free ourselves from geopolitical choke points?
That's a great question.
Or will we just trade the Strait of Hormuz for whichever narrow shipping lanes control the world's lithium, cobalt, and copper?
Yeah. We spend our days watching the clocks we can see, completely oblivious to the invisible ones ticking down under the table. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. We'll see you next time.